If you are what you think, then you must begin to be very careful with what you think. Now you have to start being cautious in every conversation you have with your friends, your family, your mother, your husband, your children, whenever you talk about what is missing from your life. Because if you want to attract something into your life, something good, something great, something divine, something prosperous, well-being, health, or anything else, but you speak and think about what you lack, and you understand that what you think is what expands, then you will continue expanding more of what is missing and keep attracting scarcity into your life. I never talk about what I lack in life. I place my attention only on what I intend to create. I learned this lesson a long time ago, but the place where it is best expressed is probably in Esther and Jerry Hicks' book, Ask and It Is Given, which shares the teachings of Abraham. It is about learning to manifest your desires. I believe it is one of the greatest bodies of knowledge available today. I know Esther and Jerry. I know them well. I have been with them on many occasions. It is about practicing the idea of placing your thoughts not on what is missing, but on what is on its way. It is on its way. It is on its way. 4 words, engrave them in your mind. Whatever you want to attract into your life, be certain that it is on its way. Let me tell you that as you begin to harmonize your thoughts with the thought of Source, with the thought of God, with that which has always existed, which does nothing and yet leaves nothing undone, the more you align with this way of thinking, the more you begin to elevate your thoughts. The habit of how you think stops being an obstacle to what you want to attract and starts resonating with it. It becomes your natural way of thinking all the time. Then you begin teaching your children to think the same way. So when you hear them say things like, "With my luck, it surely will not work," stop them. Why have we learned to say "with my luck" in a negative sense? Why not make it a positive habit and say, "With my luck, it will probably arrive faster than I imagine"? Here is what happens. When you change your way of thinking and anticipate that things will work out for you, you can only act on what you think. And when you begin to have higher and higher thoughts, those thoughts line up with what you want to attract. Then you begin to act accordingly, as if it really were going to happen. And when you act as though it is already on its way, you start to see how everything fits together. Call it the universe, whatever you wish, but it begins to conspire with you. It starts working on your behalf to the point that you become a collaborator with destiny. Instead of seeing destiny as something that simply happens to you, you become an ally of what you desire to attract. Ask any physician about what they call the will to live. Ask about patients undergoing a corneal transplant who think, "I am going to regain my sight when this is over," instead of those who believe it probably will not work. Whom would doctors prefer to work with? What is that inner power that says, "I refuse to allow myself to think about failure"? I tell my mother, who is 90 years old, almost 91, with whom I spent the last 5 days, that she has always been very clear about how she is going to die. She told me when she was 60 that she would go in her sleep peacefully and when she was ready, not before. And she tells me, "I do not think the time has come yet." I joke back, "Well, you have an ingrown toenail. Perhaps we should speed things up." But she insists, "I will tell you when I am ready." She has always said she will never allow Alzheimer's to enter her life. Sometimes she says, "I do not remember this name as well as before," but she has never allowed the idea of Alzheimer's to be a possibility in her mind. I asked her, "And what if you are wrong?" She replied, "Well, who would notice?" Studies in gerontology have been conducted on how life changes after 60 compared to before that age. They have found that people who live vibrantly in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, who feel strong and do not view aging as a physical or mental decline, are far less likely to suffer from age-related illnesses. By contrast, those who see old age as decline from their 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s are much more likely to attract those illnesses. If you change the way you believe about aging and say, "Decline is not a possibility," then you will be in a much better position. I do not think about what I lack. I do not place my attention on what I lack. I do not tell others what I cannot do, what does not work, or how terrible the world is. The Tao teaches a great deal about this. It was written for leaders, for people in positions of power, but I have translated all those teachings into personal leadership. Great leaders, truly great leaders, are those who reject violence. You must reach a point where you do not allow violent thoughts to enter your consciousness. That means you must watch the films you see and the video games your children play. Those games must be supervised and removed if they contain violence. It also means you should avoid consuming news that constantly reinforces the idea that the world is a terrible place. Because the world is not a terrible place. It is a perfect place. It is a beautiful place. Those who are connected with the Tao and those who are not, we can create the kind of world we want when enough of us begin to say, that is not part of my consciousness. No, I do not accept gossip. No, I do not accept violence. No, I will have nothing to do with that. And you simply change the channel. You turn it off. When I pick up Time magazine as I board a flight, I flip through it and say, I will not read the stories that involve murders. I will not read this. I do not need to know more about people who set themselves on fire. I do not need to keep including that in my consciousness because I want to be someone who radiates thoughts aligned with God. That is what I want to do, and I cannot accomplish it if I am constantly steeped in that kind of content. So I turn the pages and generally think, I have just thrown away another $4.95. There is nothing worth reading. Once in a while, there is a good story about Tiger Woods or something similar, but in general, there is not much there. You do not have to fill yourself with that energy. Do not set your thoughts on what you lack, nor on what has always been. Do not place your thoughts on what others want for you unless you want what others desire for you to keep appearing in your life. If you have conflicts with someone, you do not have to focus your attention on thoughts that are out of harmony with the relationship you would like to have. It is not necessary. You can transform a story of hatred into a story of love simply by changing your thoughts at any time in your life. Some of you will see that this afternoon when Katie works with you, asking questions that lead you to inquire, how can you be sure that thought is true? Why not have a loving relationship with your ex-husband or ex-wife? Why not have a loving relationship with your in-laws? Why not have it with everyone on the planet? Why not? Why not in every moment of your life? This choice is yours. You can be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. You decide. God bless you and thank you for your attention. Namaste. Thank you. How many people are consumed by their past, living as if the things that happened to them are the reasons their life is not going the way they would like? Today, I want to suggest that in this principle I call giving up your personal history, all those things are wonderful to talk about in therapy. You can get a lot of help by examining the events of your past that you find troubling. But the illusion is believing those are the reasons your life does not work as you would like today. That is the illusion. It is the illusion Alan Watts spoke about when he used the metaphor of a boat's wake. A boat's wake is nothing but the trail it leaves behind. If you stand at the back of a speedboat and watch, it is a wonderful metaphor. You can picture it clearly in your mind. Everything is just a trail left behind. If you ask what drives the boat forward, the answer is that what propels it is the energy of the present moment, generated by the engine right now. And that is the only thing that can move the boat ahead. The most important question you must ask yourself about this little metaphor is it possible for the wake to drive the boat? Can a wake, a trail left behind, make the boat go forward? And of course, the answer is no. And the same is true for your life. The wake of your life is also a trail left behind, and that is all. It is not what makes you inefficient, poor, unhappy, depressed, stressed, sick, or stuck in bad relationships, though we like to think so and place responsibility for our circumstances on all those past events. The way I see the past is that everything that happened to us had to happen for us to be where we are today. And the evidence I have for that is that it happened. And there is nothing more to say about it. It happened and it cannot be undone. 1,000 years ago, a man named Omar Khayyam, a maker of tents in the Muslim world, wrote, "The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all your piety nor wit can lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all your tears wash out a word of it." He already knew this in the Middle Ages. And yet today we have people consumed by the belief that because of how you treated me, because of what you said to me, because I was abandoned, because I was abused, ignored, or because of my past. Those are the reasons my life is not going as I wish. If there is any advice I think will help you to move along that road less traveled, it came to me from a man named Carlos Castaneda. I was reading something he wrote in a book called The Fire from Within, and he said, "One day I realized that I no longer needed a personal history." And he went on, "And as with alcohol, I dropped it. That, and only that, has made all the difference in my life." So all of that, all those events that occurred up to now, the only thing you can do is give thanks. And I mean for everything. Thank you for abandoning me. Thank you for the abuses. Thank you for the hardships. Thank you for it all. Because from those falls, from those struggles and difficulties, I generated the energy to propel myself to a higher place. And without those falls, without those struggles, without those difficulties, I could not be where I am today. The way you process and perceive yourself is not determined so much by what others say to you, though you may like to believe that, as by how you have decided to process yourself. And what you need to learn from the start is to understand that dislike of yourself, self-rejection, criticizing yourself, finding faults in yourself, or looking at your body and telling yourself all the things you do not like are burdens you impose on yourself. You can tell yourself you are too tall, too short, too fat, too thin. You can go through every organ of your body, as some people do, and find 1,000 reasons to dislike yourself. You do not like the size of your legs. You do not like the size of your breasts. You do not like your hair. You do not like your eyes, your ears. Your nose is too big. It is endless. And this is a burden you place upon yourself in your life. And it is something you truly need to begin processing in a different way. One way to process this is to ask yourself, what do I gain from this? What is the purpose of disliking myself or finding fault with myself? It is the only me I have. Instead of doing that and keeping myself miserable, what I am going to do is look in the mirror and say, this is the body I came into the world with. For whatever reason, whether it was my plan, God's plan, my parents' plan, or a conspiracy. Whatever it is, it remains the reality, and I am going to accept the reality of who I am and see it as my curriculum toward a higher place. The body you have, whether you are in a wheelchair, whether you are blind, deaf, tall, short, black, white, whatever, remains your curriculum. It is what you have to reach the highest level you desire in your life. To reject it is, in fact, to reject the entire curriculum of your life. And you have to examine this idea well, because in our culture, I think I have been asked this question on talk shows across the United States more than any other. Is it not selfish? Are you not promoting selfishness? Are you not telling people they should love themselves and reject others? I would like to clarify that right now. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what does it mean to be selfish? To be selfish is to be a burden to another human being. Whenever you find yourself being a burden to someone else, or someone else is a burden to you, that is a very selfish act. The person who does not like themselves, believe it or not, is the greatest burden to be around in the world. It is someone who is never happy, who does not know how to be happy, who uses other people in an attempt to be happy, who always blames others for the conditions of their life. The person who doubts or rejects themselves does not know how to enjoy their life, and being around someone who does not enjoy their life is a burden. By contrast, the person who loves themselves, who feels good about themselves, who, if you ask, do you love yourself, does not even hesitate, simply answers, of course I do. This is me. It is all I have. Of course I love myself. Why would I not? Why would I put myself down? This has nothing to do with being conceited or finding fault in others or believing you are better than anyone. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the simple notion that to be happy, I have to love myself. To be free of being a burden to another person, I have to know how to enjoy my life. If I know how to enjoy my life, it means I love the life I have. And that means I love the body I am in. I love the being I am. Therefore, you will not be a burden to anyone. The person who loves themselves is never a burden to others unless it is out of vanity. And vanity is just another way of trying to get more attention from others. But if it is an authentic acceptance of oneself, then it is the most important thing you can do. And in raising children, nothing is more important in the entire educational environment than self-concept, self-esteem. That is what we are always trying to teach the young. Feel good about yourself, treat yourself well, value yourself, care for yourself as a precious, important, significant, grand, divine creature, as someone unique and special in the whole world. And feel that way about yourself wherever you go, and act accordingly. You have to say to yourself, they did not do it to me, I allowed it to happen. And I am no longer willing to allow myself to be immobilized by the rejection that other people, events, institutions, or whatever may have tried to impose on me. So what you want to do at this point is identify the areas of your life in which you are rejecting yourself and commit to changing them. Then you can find specific things you can do about it. You can begin disciplining yourself to select new responses to others' attempts to make you feel good. When someone says to you, "You look very good today," you can practice, rather than that immediate self-rejecting response like, "Oh, it is not me," or "It is because of my hairdresser." Simply saying, "Thank you," or "It is nice to know you appreciate it." Even if you do not truly feel it, sometimes you have to pretend. But that is fine as long as you practice an attitude of, yes, if someone tells me I look good, that I smell nice, that this outfit suits me, or that I look younger than I am, I have the right to accept that compliment. I am worth it. You can practice saying things like, "I love you," and notice how you react when someone says the same to you. What is your response to that? Accept the "I love yous," the caresses, and the affection others offer you as something directed at someone who deserves it, rather than constantly doubting and thinking, "I wonder if they really mean it," or "Could that be true?" Your attitude in your inner conversation should be, "Of course you would love me. I am worth it. I am a valuable person." Here are some ideas for bringing peace into your life permanently. Thinking of yourself as a peaceful person is the first step, but it is only the first step. Thought must translate into action for you to know peace. Work on curbing your tendency to create confrontations and disturbances in other people's lives. A simple practice is to pause and ask yourself whether it is your ego, which loves conflict, or your higher self, which loves peace, that is about to act. That pause will help you offer a peaceful response, even in situations where you feel impatient or misunderstood. In those moments, you can simply say to a grumpy employee, for example, "It seems you are having a hard day," instead of, "I have been waiting 15 minutes and I feel mistreated." Send peace by stopping and consulting your loving presence before you respond, rather than letting your ego speak. Practice releasing emotions of fear and guilt and replace them with love, forgiveness, and kindness. Free yourself from guilt by forgiving yourself and committing to avoid that kind of behavior in the future. You do not need guilt unless you are going to allow your ego to dominate your life forever. For example, make a list of everything that keeps you from loving yourself. Your list might include being overweight, jealous, nervous, addicted, incompetent, or uncoordinated. Then, no matter how much effort it takes, invert those mental statements and declare that you love yourself as you are. I love myself even if I am overweight. I love myself even if I am addicted, and so on. This will help you feel at peace with the choices you have made and realize that you are not that body nor those cravings. You are the invisible chooser. As you feel more at peace with the chooser, you will begin replacing unhealthy choices with a spirit of love. Examine everything that offends you and try to take your ego out of the equation. If world hunger and poverty offend you, try shifting your perspective. In some way, in some manner I do not understand, these things occur in divine order, and my desire to change them also exists within that divine order. Free yourself from what offends you and act upon your desire to correct it. Then there will be no need to fight. Similarly, if another person's behavior offends you, you are interpreting that behavior from an egocentric stance that says they should not act that way. You are choosing to feel offended, hurt, or angry at their behavior, but they are simply being as they are. Feeling offended is your ego speaking to keep you anxious and upset. If you do not take it personally and see the behavior as it is, you will be able to work to eradicate the world's ills without your ego pushing you to feel offended. Keep in mind that resentments bring conflict, while communication brings peace. If you want peace in your life, Get rid of your resentments. The way to do this is to lay aside your egocentrism and practice forgiveness instead of revenge. As you release, you will feel peace wrapping around you. If you feel anger towards someone in your life, as difficult as it may be, work on communicating with that person about your feelings. The inner shame or anguish of having been hurt is exactly what your ego wants you to experience, because it will keep you away from your sacred quest and trapped in the grip of your anxious ego. Always keep this phrase in mind. Judgment and peace are antagonists. A Course in Miracles says, "The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. It is curious that such a debilitating capacity is so deeply cherished. You must make a daily effort to look at others without condemning them. Each judgment takes you farther from your goal of peace. Your ego loves your judgments because through them you remain in a constant state of anguish and regret. Remember that you define no one with your judgments. You only define yourself as someone who needs to judge. Judging others with condemnation eliminates the possibility of experiencing love. If you can practice simply keeping silent instead of condemning, you will reach the bliss I am talking about. You do not have to pretend to love something you truly do not love. Simply remain silent and let the judgments fall away. Peace is not found in being right, nor in feeling hurt or angry. By all means, work to correct the errors you perceive, but do so with the understanding that an angry heart keeps you from knowing God on the path of your sacred quest. Peace will come to you when you are a healer instead of a judge. To embrace truth is, essentially, to welcome your higher self and come to know God. Everything inauthentic will automatically fall away. Your ego works hard to convince you that you are separate and better than others, and you know it does not take kindly to your embracing anything that threatens its existence. But remember that this is your inauthentic self, your false self. Deceit will play a large role in your life when you accept the ego as your guide. Therefore, to abandon your dependence on that false self with all its deceit, you will have to make a new pact with truth. I encourage you to write a contract with yourself in which you commit to include truth as your companion in your thoughts, your conversations, and your life. This is a great challenge and may be difficult for you, but I guarantee it will lead you onto the path of your sacred self. Begin by looking honestly and fearlessly at who you are, beneath all the superficial appearances with which you have surrounded yourself. You have a human story, like all the people who have ever lived on this planet. That story begins with your conception, continues through your childhood, and all your personal triumphs and tribulations up to this very moment. You know there is an eternal aspect within you, beyond the surface, and for that part of you, only truth will suffice. Your desire to attract prosperity represents a deeply spiritual request. It is perfectly aligned with the law of abundance from which you come. Your imbalances are energies in the form of thoughts you mistakenly believe will bring the prosperity you want. Below are 7 of the most common thoughts that make the manifestation of prosperity practically impossible. First, it is not God's will. By blaming God for not having what you need or desire, you justify a built-in excuse for accepting your station in life. In reality, as St. Paul reminds us, God is more than willing to grant you the blessings of abundance. In fact, God is pure abundance, but you are the one out of balance on the prosperity scale. By placing the responsibility for your lack on divine will, you create enormous resistance. Energetically, you are asking the universe to send you more of what you believe. The solution to remove this barrier, which applies to all 7 resistance energies, is to change the belief. First, catch the erroneous thought the moment it arises and replace it with something like, I am a creation of God. God is abundance. I must be that from which I come. To be like that from which I come means that God wants me to enjoy the fullness of prosperity. This is how I am going to express life from now on. Second, there is a limited supply. This thought represents enormous resistance to restoring balance on the prosperity and scarcity scale. Thoughts like, there is only so much to go around, or not everyone can be rich, generate this resistance. The solution for eliminating this kind of block is to remove it and replace those thoughts with new energies that align more harmoniously with the truth of the world you live in. Try thinking of money in the context of the ocean. There is an infinite supply, more than enough to cover your needs. The amount of money circulating in the world does not diminish no matter how much you take for yourself. Why? Because in the end, money, like the ocean's water, must return to its source. It simply keeps circulating as energy. Take 1,000,000 gallons from the ocean and it remains the same. That is how it works. Abundance is drawn from abundance, and abundance remains. Third, I do not deserve it. Here is a simple rule. When you believe you are worthy of prosperity flowing into your life, you will attract exactly what you believe. If you think attracting money into your life is somehow incompatible with a spiritual consciousness, then you erect barriers of resistance that block that flow. And the universe, being what it is, returns to you exactly what you believe about not deserving it. To change this idea and rebalance yourself on this scale, you need to align your desire with the energy of your thoughts. You must constantly remind yourself that you are a divine part of God. Feeling unworthy of God's abundance is the same as denying your spiritual essence and insulting your Creator. Remember that you came here to be like God, but you drifted from that idea when you believed more in your separation than in your oneness with your source. Silently repeat something like, I am a part of God, an individualized divine expression of God. I am worthy and deserving of all that God is and all that flows into my life. The abundance I desire is on its way, and I will do my best to avoid blocking and resisting this divinely inspired flow. Fourth, I have limited skills and talents. If you keep in mind the belief that you do not possess the skill or talent to attract abundance, then you have weighted your scale toward a life of scarcity. This is a major symptom of resistance disguised as an excuse to justify why you do not manage to prosper. Your inner vision will always outstrip your inborn talent. In fact, if you have confidence that the skills or capacities you need are available, you are already on the right path. First, eliminate the excuse, I have no talent. Second, create an inner image of yourself attracting prosperity. And third, act as if you already were what you desire to be. By acting as though you already possess the talent you want, you will change the image, and, as if by magic, you will change your talent as well. 5. I have never been lucky. The universe you live in, and that lives in you, operates through energy, and only energy. Nothing happens until something moves, as Albert Einstein said. Everything is vibrating, even what appears to be still. Your universe runs on the law of attraction, which means energy connects with similar energy. Your thoughts are vibrations of energy. Low thoughts, those out of tune with the energy of Source, attract low energy responses from the universe. Elevated spiritually based thoughts activate identical vibrations that bring you what you desire in harmony with your source. That said, there is no room for luck in the universe. If you have an accident, it is not that you have bad luck or that it is your fault. You are simply a vibrational match with what you collided with at that moment. Seeing your world this way, you can begin to exercise more control over what you align with by trading the low vibrational energy of your thoughts for higher vibrations. In doing so, you set in motion an energy that seeks to match your highest desires. 6. It has always been this way. When you use your personal history to justify why you are currently imbalanced on the abundance scale, you are actually saying, I have a long history of attracting scarcity into my life, and I plan to keep doing exactly the same. Believing the past is responsible for your continued insufficiency is a major source of resistance. You were probably taught that if you do not pay attention to past mistakes, you are doomed to repeat them. Here is my perspective on that advice. Keeping your thoughts focused on past errors guarantees you will keep manifesting them in the present. I believe it is better to discard your personal history or any deficiency that has arisen in your life. Refuse to think about what failed to materialize unless you want more of the same. Avoid talking about your shadowy past. Do not identify yourself as someone whose childhood or youth was marked by darkness and pity. Instead, view your entire story as a series of steps you absolutely needed to take to arrive at the present realization of your infinite potential for abundance. Be grateful for everything that did not show up, then move from resistance toward the manifestation of your desires and rebalance your thinking to match those desires. 7. I do not know how to think about abundance for myself. When you are convinced that a prosperity consciousness is like a foreign language, you have once again chosen resistance instead of allowing. You may not believe you have the capacity to think in the way I have explained here, but I assure you that you do, in abundance. You are that, and that is you. Your belief that you cannot think this way exists only because you have allowed yourself to believe in your separation from your source. Here are some rules for a healthy imagination. Rule number 1. Never place in your imagination any thought you would not want to materialize. Rule number 2. Of equal importance, never allow your imagination to be contaminated with ideas about how your life used to be. You need to have faith in your power to make the non-existent your reality. The fact that you have not experienced the magic of the non-existent appearing in your daily life is no reason to poison your imagination with the thoughts that led you to where you are now or where you have been for most of your life. I cannot help it. I have always been this way are statements that indicate how you used your imagination in the past. You must now be willing to change your concept of yourself, and you cannot do that while clinging to those old ideas that once were your truths. Those truths have kept you from the full realization of your dreams. Your imagination can undergo a complete renovation. Replace the old ideas of, I have always been like this. It is my nature. It is the only thing I have known, with affirmations such as, I am God, I am capable, I am strong, I am rich, I am healthy, I am happy. Or use Saint Germain's words, I am the conquering presence. I command this I am presence to govern my mind, my home, my affairs, and my world perfectly. Use your imagination for the fulfillment of your desires, aligned with and realized in God. Expand your imagination beyond the self-concept that limits you to an ordinary consciousness. Rule number 3, firmly remember that your imagination is yours and only yours. It is a vast, borderless realm within you to which no one else has access. No one can peer into your imagination and place there what they prefer for you, nor can they extract ideas germinating in that magnificent imagination of yours. Your imagination is your own fertile field for cultivating whatever seed you choose to plant for a future harvest. This rule counsels you never to allow someone else's ideas about what is possible or impossible for you, about how you should think or who you should be, to occupy your imagination. Take a regular inventory of the thoughts in your imagination and notice how many of those ideas were originally suggested by well-meaning others, from your childhood to today. You may have been told you have always been a dreamer, as if that were a flaw. I speak here from experience. Family, friends, teachers, and even advisors used to belittle the ideas that burned brightly in my imagination. I often heard comments like, Wayne, you are a dreamer? Come back to reality. You will never make it as a writer. You will never be a television or film performer. Be realistic. We know what is best for you. When I was discharged from the Navy at 22, my superiors warned me that beginning college at my advanced age was fraught with uncertainty, especially because I had no higher education experience and would be competing with young people fresh out of high school. Since I already had a skill as a cryptographer in the Navy, they advised me to follow what they considered best for me. But I had a dream, an imagination full of ideas about teaching, writing, and speaking before large audiences. I saw myself on stage. I saw myself as a prominent author, and that vision could not and would not be sabotaged by someone else's view of what I should or could become. As a child in a foster home, I almost always ignored others' ideas about what I should think or do. I was simply indifferent to their opinions about what I could imagine for myself. I exercised discipline over my own imagination with clarity, refusing to allow outside opinions to cancel or diminish what, for me, was sacred ground. Not long ago, others advised me that acting in a film was unwise for a 68-year-old man with no acting experience. Once again, I remembered to hang the "Do Not Disturb" sign at the entrance to my imagination and proceeded to take acting classes and adopt self-imposed discipline that allowed me to create a film. It is a product that fills me with pride today, all because I have diligently practiced rule number 3. I encourage you to watch the shift and you will understand what I mean. Never, and I mean never, allow other people's ideas about who you can or cannot become to stain your dream or contaminate your imagination. This is your territory, and a no trespassing sign is a great tool to place at every entrance to your imagination. Broadly speaking, other people's views on how you should occupy your imagination usually involve their own interests. Frequently, the urge to meddle in your imagination is a way to gain something for themselves by convincing you of the uselessness of your dreams. Recruit only those, yourself included, who are primarily interested in what you see or hear in your imagination about your life. Rule number 4. Rule number 4 may surprise you. It concerns what you must not allow to monopolize your imagination. Do not let your imagination be restricted to the current conditions of your life, or, as I call it, to being obsessed with what is. Your imagination is limitless, and if you have opted for an ordinary standard of living, it is tempting to remain fixed on what is, rather than on what you unapologetically intend to manifest for yourself. Constantly remember that everything you have believed has brought you exactly to where you are now. If you want to elevate your life and become a manifester, then you must change what you believe to be true about yourself, which is what placed you exactly where you are today. Feelings such as, "this is reality," "this is how things are," or "there is nothing I can do to change it," are pernicious thoughts. Thoughts that stain and corrupt your great gift of, "I am that I am," which is your divine inheritance from your Creator. Just as growth is not possible if one continues doing exactly the same today as yesterday and tomorrow, your imagination faces the same challenge. In your imagination, you can replace the thought, "someday I will be in a better place," with "I am already in my mind where I intend to be." This may sound irrational because you are accustomed to evaluating your life based on what your senses tell you is your reality. But you can choose to reprogram your imagination to take you where you intend to be in the now. Creation originates in the world of spirit. In other words, your imagination is the source of everything that has not yet manifested for you. By clinging only to what your senses tell you is your reality, you erect a barrier that prevents your imagination from creating everything you desire. Your imagination is unlimited. What is today is restricted by precisely that, what is today. Another new way of being for me is to think in terms of personal authority rather than being authoritarian. A person who has authority never needs to dominate anyone else. Never. Domination is unnecessary. In business, you can have authority. Those who have the most authority are the ones who listen the most and are most aware of what others have to say. A person in a relationship who needs to dominate another and make the other submissive demonstrates they have no authority because they derive their power not from within, but from whom they can control. And that never lasts. That never lasts. The only thing that endures is inner power. "Know thyself," said Shakespeare. The more you know yourself, the more honest you are with yourself. Honesty becomes a way of life. I do not think the world necessarily works this way, but you cannot run your world based on what other people in the world do or do not want. For me, honesty is like karma projected into the world. The way people treat you in the world is their karma. How you react is yours. And when you react with dishonesty, that is what you are sending into the world, dishonesty. And when you put dishonesty into the world, that is what will return to you. Because what you send is what comes back. What you sow, you reap. It is in every great institution in the world, whether a religion or a philosophy. What you put into the world is what you will receive. What you plant is what you will harvest. And the more you project honesty, simply because that is what you are, because you are being honest, not trying to be, you are simply being honesty, then that is what will return to you regularly. And when it does not, you will see it simply as another test you are to pass. For me, it has become a way of life. It is called serenity instead of acquisitions. The more you try to acquire, the more you try to get. The more you try to collect in your life and evaluate yourself based on that. Serenity, which is the name of my youngest daughter, Serena. Instead of acquisitions and accumulations and trying to prove your worth that way. And when you achieve that serenity, which comes from the way you think all the time, then you replace all that junk that keeps you stuck here between 6 and 1 on that clock. And once you move past that, once you get beyond it, you can never ever go back. Because living in the light is a way of being that if you are not there, you do not yet understand. But once you see it, and once it begins to take hold of your life, you can never return. That is your purpose. It is not that your purpose is to try to be loving. Your purpose is to be love and to have only that to offer. Choose to experience peace by focusing on what you are. You can experience peace by balancing everything happening around you with an awareness of God. Nothing compels you to react to evil with a non-spiritual mental response. You have the option to place your mental energy on what you desire, and in doing so, create a new world. Let me tell you how I choose to respond to the avalanche of messages that focus on what is wrong with the world. First, I remind myself that for every act of evil, there are a million acts of kindness. I choose to believe that people are essentially good, and that by holding to this belief system, I help this awareness become reality. When enough of us adopt this idea, we will learn to live collectively in this peaceful consciousness. Second, I know for certain that no amount of hatred in my heart will ever bring peace. Hatred will only add to the presence of those human-created destructive energies. Therefore, I choose to focus my attention on what I support and on feeling good. I support peace, not war. As Albert Einstein once remarked, I am not only a pacifist, but a militant pacifist. Nothing will end war unless the people themselves refuse to go to war. As a recipient of the Einstein Award from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine at Yeshiva University, I would humbly add, and unless people refuse to have warlike thoughts in Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela wrote, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. I know we are all partners with one another. That is how I think. And when I see images of a world in disorder because many have forgotten this, I still choose to know that ultimately, we will learn to live this way collectively. But it begins with each of us refusing to be instruments of non-peace in all our thoughts and consequently in all our behaviors. Adolf Hitler's designated successor, Hermann Göring, was quoted in the Nuremberg Diary as saying, "Of course people do not want war, but after all it is the leaders of the country who determine policy, and it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, a parliament, or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to do the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and for exposing the country to danger. It works the same way in any country. That was Hermann Göring's statement. I choose not to be one of those who are dragged along. I refuse to be led into doing the will of any leader who tries to convince me that my beliefs in peace make me unpatriotic. When an unidentified Pentagon official was asked why the United States military censored graphic images of the Gulf War, he replied, "If people were to see that kind of thing, there would never again be any war." Well, that is my goal, to live in a world where warlike thoughts are impossible because we are focusing all our mental energy on what we support instead of what we hate. Former President Dwight Eisenhower, who was also the Allies' commander in the Second World War, once commented, "Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, from those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. This is a call to bring our world and ourselves into balance. Peace demands heroic thinking and purity of consciousness. Third, when I see and hear evil, I remind myself that I did not come here to be part of hatred. Although others clearly have, I will remember to remain with the inner sense of peace that calls to me and surround those who behave wickedly with that same luminous energy. I simply refuse to go to war in my thoughts. I choose to be a beacon of light for those dark places that lack this kind of illuminating energy. Finally, as dispatches of violence continue to arrive, I remind myself again and again that we have a choice in how we respond to it all. I know that by feeling hatred in response to hatred, I only contribute to the presence of hatred in the world. As an old Chinese proverb says, if you decide to seek revenge, better dig 2 graves. I know I have the option to see the good in the world instead of focusing on what has gone wrong. When messages of violence and hatred reach me, I press the mute button or even the off button and remember what the Dalai Lama said. Compassion and love are not mere luxuries. As the source of both inner and external peace, they are fundamental to the continued survival of our species. Those are extremely valuable words that describe our need to be in balance. I keep myself balanced in this dimension of being, in a peaceful world, by repeating them again and again. I now know for certain that I have the obligation to remain in a consciousness of compassion and love, not only to maintain my own balance, but to help ensure the continued survival of our species. There can be no greater calling. All of this is here to teach us something grand and something wonderful that helps us move upward to higher, more spiritual places. So the way to eliminate adversity is literally to be grateful for it and say, thank you for everything that is appearing in my life, because it is going to teach me something profound. Some of the hardest, most troublesome things that have happened to me in life, what I once thought were disasters, have taught me how to be a better writer, a better speaker, a kinder person, a better human being. Because true nobility is not about being better than other people. It is about being better than you used to be. And the way to get better at being better than before is by letting these challenges appear and then transcending and overcoming them. I do not look back on my drinking days, which I ended 17 years ago, as anything other than great and wonderful events that helped me. All that drinking, all those behaviors, and the drugs I used, all those things helped me become a stronger, purer, more decent person, a better human being, a better husband, a better father, a better speaker, a better man as a person. Anyway, let me try to finish the rest of this. We only have a few moments. Were you going to say something, D? Oh, I was going to say, do you think people get stuck in that why me mentality? Yes, I think so, instead of saying, why not me? Thank you. Thank you for everything, for every little bit of it. Here in Maui, there is a motto that says, no rain, no rainbows. I always remind people of that whenever there is a rainy day and tourists are all upset about the rain. I tell them, but do you see all those rainbows you love so much? There are rainbows here on the island every day. You cannot have them without the rain. And I think that is a good symbol for our lives. One of the things Gandhi said, which I believe is very important, is that there is more to life than making things go faster and always increasing our speed. That idea that we have to arrive quickly, that we have to get ahead of others. Slow down. In the 26th verse of the Tao I was writing about this morning, it speaks of stillness as the mother of serenity. In other words, to arrive at a place where you are no longer full of restlessness, you have to go to that place of stillness, that place of silence, that place of peace that is within each of us. And that means not telling yourself you have to get there before someone else. Not rushing through traffic lights, but meditating while you drive. When a yellow light appears, instead of speeding up to beat it, simply slow down, put your foot on the brake, and say, thank you. Thank you for a minute to simply sit here, be at peace, be kind, and be in a state of harmony with my source, which is always at peace. I also said, do everything you can to eliminate debt in your life, because all the debts you have, credit card debts, money you owe the banks, mortgages, are a way of giving up control of your life and placing it in the hands of someone who will pull the strings of your existence. Also, set aside the idea that everything is evaluated by how much it costs or how much it is worth. Try to remove monetary value from things and simply enjoy everything in your life for what it is. I am actually going through something right now, and I am wondering why all of this is happening to me in life. At 15, my father died unexpectedly of an aortic aneurysm. I dealt with that more or less decently. I do not want to say well, but I was only 15. Then I got married, and my husband and I struggled for 4.5 years to get pregnant, with a miscarriage along the way. I finally became pregnant in November of last year. We found out on the 8th of December. But on the 4th of April, we learned that the baby was very ill, and I ended up delivering a stillborn child on the 19th of April. I am not quite sure why all of this is happening to me or how to get through it. Yes, I can feel your pain. First of all, as you continue along this path I write about, especially regarding inspiration, you will discover that all the great teachers who have ever walked among us, including Jesus, have taught us that death is not a punishment. It is the inevitability of all things. Everything composed decomposes. The question is not whether it will decompose. The question we have as human beings is how long it will take, how much time we have. When you say the words, "My father died unexpectedly," my immediate response is, unexpected for you, yes, but not for God. From the moment your father was conceived and appeared on this planet, his birth was already determined, regardless of his opinion about it. And the same is true of his death. And the same is true for the miscarriages you have had and the stillborn child you delivered. There is a perfection in all of this. These souls appeared very, very briefly, and for whatever reason none of us will ever know, we're not ready to manifest in this world. What you are doing is taking it personally. You are telling yourself, why me? How could something so terrible happen to me? How much of this kind of thing do I have to endure before I have peace in my life? And I say to you, have peace in your life now. Feel gratitude even for the simple fact that you have been able to participate in the dance of life. You have already created life twice, and because it did not last as long as you thought it should, that is only our ego in action.